The news traveled across the galaxy faster than the surviving Confederation ships could return home. Within days, every major species had heard the impossible story. A small human fleet had destroyed half of the mighty Seventh Fleet using primitive weapons and tactics that should never have worked. Supreme Chancellor Vorthak of the Galactic Council called an emergency session on the capital world of HFY. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, all talking at once about the stunning defeat of what everyone had considered the galaxy's supreme military power. "Order! Order!" Vorthak called, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "We must understand what happened before we panic." But panic was already spreading. Stock markets crashed as investors realized that Confederation military technology might not be as superior as everyone believed. Insurance companies refused to cover shipping routes anywhere near human space. Several minor species began quietly asking their neighbors about mutual defense agreements. Captain Deho, now promoted to Rear Admiral, led humanity's first diplomatic mission to the galactic capital. His small fleet of 5 ships caused a sensation when it arrived at HFY. News crews from across the galaxy broadcast live coverage of the human vessels, trying to understand how such crude-looking ships had achieved such a decisive victory. Ambassador Insu, humanity's first official representative to galactic civilization, studied the massive city planet with interest as their shuttle descended toward the diplomatic quarter. The Kithari had built an impressive civilization, but it was clear they had grown comfortable with their dominance. "Admiral," Insu said quietly, "our intelligence suggests the other species are more afraid of the Confederation than loyal to it. This defeat might give them ideas about independence." "Good," Deho replied. "We didn't come here to conquer anyone, but we won't object if our victory helps others gain freedom." The humans' arrival at the Galactic Council created immediate chaos. Some species demanded to know how primitive weapons had defeated advanced Confederation technology. Others quietly asked about establishing independent diplomatic relations with Earth. The Kithari delegation, led by the disgraced Grand Admiral Tilak, tried to minimize their defeat. The humans used dishonorable tactics, he claimed. They employed primitive weapons and surprise attacks instead of fighting with proper military protocols. Ambassador Insu stood to respond. "Honorable Chancellor," she said in perfect galactic standard, "there is nothing dishonorable about using effective weapons. The Confederation came to our system with overwhelming force demanding our surrender. We defended ourselves with the tools we had." Her words caused murmurs throughout the assembly. Most species had never heard anyone speak so directly to Kithari representatives. Furthermore, Insu continued, "We offer our military technology freely to any species interested in defending their independence. Humanity believes all peoples have the right to govern themselves." This announcement created uproar. The idea that the humans would share their devastating weapons technology with other species terrified the Confederation leadership and excited everyone else. Meanwhile, Admiral Minho was overseeing the rapid expansion of human military presence throughout their local sector. New colonies were being established, not for conquest but for defense. Each new world became a fortress, protecting human space and offering refuge to species fleeing Confederation oppression. "Sir," reported Commander Unji from the Intelligence Center, "we're receiving requests for military assistance from 12 different species. They all want protection from Confederation integration efforts." "What's our response?" Minho asked. "We're offering defensive alliances only. We'll help them protect their territory, but we won't help them attack others. The goal is stability, not starting a galactic war." The economic effects of the Confederation's defeat were spreading rapidly. Military contractors who had made fortunes selling superior technology to the Kethari found their contracts canceled, as buyers realized human weapons were more effective. Trade routes shifted as merchants sought alternatives to Confederation-controlled space. Captain Sejun, now commanding a new class of human battleships, patrolled the borders of the growing alliance of free worlds. His ship, the UES Liberator, had become a symbol of hope for oppressed species throughout the galaxy. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from a Valteran merchant convoy. They're being attacked by Confederation tax collectors." Sejun smiled grimly. The Confederation was trying to maintain control through intimidation, but their military weakness was becoming apparent to everyone. Set course for the convoy, he ordered. Let's remind the Confederation that the galaxy has changed. Back on SciFiPrime, the political situation was deteriorating rapidly. Supreme Chancellor Vorthak faced demands from his own council to take stronger action against the humans, while also dealing with growing independence movements throughout Confederation space. The humans have made us look weak, complained Admiral Hakaron during a closed council session. If we don't respond strongly, other species will think they can defy us too. And what do you suggest? Vorthak asked tiredly. Send another fleet to be destroyed? The humans have proven their military superiority clearly enough. The truth was painful but undeniable. The Confederation's 3,000-year reign of dominance was ending, not through conquest but through the simple demonstration that their power was not absolute. Grand Admiral Tylak, stripped of his rank and facing military tribunal, spent his days analyzing the battle recordings. He was trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong, how weapons his people considered obsolete had proven so devastatingly effective. The fault was ours, he admitted to his former aide. We became so confident in our superiority that we stopped innovating. We assumed our way was the only way. These humans showed us how wrong we were. The tribunal would find him guilty of military incompetence, but history would remember him as the last commander of the old Galactic Order. Captain Jiwan's sacrifice had not been forgotten. A memorial station was built at the site of the Great Battle, honoring all who had died fighting for freedom. Representatives from dozens of species came to pay their respects and learn about human concepts of honor and sacrifice. As the first year after the battle passed, the changes became permanent. The Free Worlds Alliance, led jointly by humans and other liberated species, controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Trade flowed freely between member worlds, and military cooperation ensured that no single power could dominate the others. Admiral Minho, now elderly and thinking of retirement, stood on the observation deck of the space station orbiting Earth. Through the transparent walls, he could see human ships departing for distant worlds, not as conquerors, but as protectors and allies. Did we do the right thing? Asked Commander Yunji, who had remained his aide throughout the transformation of galactic politics. We did what humans do, Minho replied. We stood up to bullies and helped others do the same. The galaxy is better for it. The Confederation still existed, but it was no longer the dominant force it had been. Reduced to perhaps half its former size, it was forced to compete with other powers for influence and resources. Some Cathari had even joined the Free Worlds Alliance, preferring equality to the fading dream of supremacy. On distant worlds, children of a dozen different species learned about the battle that changed the galaxy. They studied how a small human fleet had stood against impossible odds and won through courage, innovation, and determination. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it. And in doing so, they had proven that the future belonged not to those with the most advanced technology, but to those with the wisdom to use it justly and the courage to defend what was right. As Admiral Minho watched the stars, he knew that humanity had found its place in the cosmos, not as rulers or subjects, but as partners in a galaxy where all species could determine their own destiny. The age of empire was ending. The age of alliance had begun, and it had all started with one simple principle that the Confederation had never understood. Sometimes, the smallest force can move the largest mountain if it knows exactly where to push. The battle began at exactly 1432 Solar Standard Time when Grand Admiral Tylak gave the order to advance. The Confederation fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 200 ships arranged in the traditional attack pattern that had brought victory for 3,000 years. Captain Deho watched from his bridge as the alien ships approached. Gravitational mines are in position, reported his tactical officer. All human ships are ready. Wait for it, Deho said calmly. Let them get closer. The Cathari fleet advanced confidently, energy shields glowing bright blue against the darkness of space. Grand Admiral Tylak expected the human ships to either flee or make a desperate last stand. Instead, they held their positions like they were waiting for something. Human ships are not moving, reported the Confederation tactical officer. They appear to be frozen with fear. Good, Tylak replied. Fear makes them easier to capture alive. When the alien fleet reached the optimal position, Admiral Minho gave the signal. Throughout the solar system, thousands of gravitational mines activated simultaneously. The devices created artificial gravity wells that pulled ships in random directions and disrupted their carefully planned formations. "What's happening to our ships?" Thylak demanded as his flagship lurched sideways. "Gravity distortions everywhere, sir." "Navigation systems are going crazy," his helmsman replied, fighting to control the massive vessel. The perfectly organized Cathari formation dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other as gravitational forces pulled them off course. Communication became difficult as vessels were scattered across millions of kilometers of space. While the aliens struggled to regain control, the human ships opened fire. Captain Deho's railguns launched tungsten rods at tremendous velocity. The projectiles moved so fast they appeared as brief flashes of light before striking their targets. The first Cathari battlecruiser to be hit simply exploded. The tungsten rod punched through its energy shields and armor like they weren't there, detonating the ship's power core in a brilliant flash. "Their weapons are penetrating our shields," shouted a Confederation officer. "Impossible," Thylak replied. "No primitive species has weapons that can do that." But the evidence was right in front of him. Human kinetic weapons were tearing through Cathari defenses with ease. The aliens had built their entire military doctrine around energy weapons and energy shields. They had never faced solid projectiles moving at such incredible speeds. Captain Sejun's massive dreadnought UES Invictus moved into position near the center of the battle. The ship's armor was already scarred from alien particle beam hits, but its thick plating had held. Now it was time to show the aliens what human engineering could really do. "Main battery, target the enemy flagship," Sejun ordered. The spinal-mounted mass driver that ran the entire length of his ship began to charge. The weapon could accelerate a depleted uranium shell to nearly 10% of light speed. No known armor could stop such a projectile. Commander Yu Jin led her squadron of fast attack ships in a high-speed assault on the alien capital vessels. Her ships were tiny compared to the massive Cathari battleships, but they carried humanity's most devastating weapons: nuclear torpedoes. The first torpedo hit a Confederation dreadnought amidships. The nuclear warhead detonated inside the ship's hull, vaporizing everything within a kilometer radius. The massive alien vessel simply disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire. "Nuclear weapons," screamed a Cathari communications officer. "They're using nuclear weapons in space combat." The Confederation had abandoned nuclear weapons centuries ago, considering them too primitive and dangerous for civilized warfare. But the humans used them with devastating effectiveness, turning mighty alien battleships into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Grand Admiral Thylak watched his fleet being torn apart and couldn't understand how it was happening. His ships had superior technology, better shields, and more advanced weapons. Yet they were losing badly to opponents who should have been easy to defeat. "All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship," he ordered desperately. 20 Confederation vessels turned their particle beams on Captain Deho's UES Sovereign. The combined firepower should have destroyed any ship in the galaxy. Instead, the human vessel's thick armor absorbed hit after hit, its surface glowing red-hot but holding together. "Armor at 60%, reported Deho's damage control officer. "All systems operational." "Return fire," Deho ordered calmly. The Sovereign's railgun spoke again, sending more tungsten rods into the heart of the alien formation. Each hit destroyed or crippled another Cathari ship, reducing Thylak's mighty fleet piece by piece. The battle reached its climax when Captain Sejun's main gun finished charging. The UES Invictus aimed directly at the Confederation flagship Eternal Dominion, the largest and most powerful ship in the alien fleet. "Fire," Sejun said quietly. The depleted uranium shell left the mass driver at incredible speed, crossing the space between the two flagships in less than a second. It hit the Eternal Dominion's bow and passed completely through the ship, creating a perfectly straight hole from front to back. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive alien vessel began to break apart, as structural supports failed and internal explosions tore through its hull. The pride of the Cathari Navy died in flames and twisted metal. Grand Admiral Thylak, injured but alive on his ruined bridge, could hardly believe what he was seeing. His invincible fleet was being destroyed by weapons that his people had considered primitive and obsolete. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "human ships are broadcasting surrender terms." They're offering medical assistance to our survivors. Even in the midst of total victory, the humans were showing mercy to their defeated enemies. This was completely alien behavior to the Cathari, who had always believed that strength meant crushing all opposition. Captain G1, commanding the cruiser UES Meridian, made the decision that would define her place in history. Her ship had taken severe damage and was losing atmosphere. Instead of retreating to safety, she aimed her crippled vessel at a Cathari command ship that was coordinating the remaining alien resistance. "All hands, abandon ship," she ordered calmly. "Set collision course for the alien command vessel." "Captain, we can still save the ship." Her first officer protested. "Not today," Jiwan replied, "but we can save a lot of human lives." The UES Meridian, its engines at full power, slammed into the Cathari command ship at tremendous velocity. Both vessels disappeared in a massive explosion that lit up space for millions of kilometers. The sight of a human captain sacrificing her own life to destroy an enemy ship broke what remained of Confederation morale. These humans didn't just fight with superior weapons, they fought with a determination that the Cathari couldn't match. "All ships, retreat immediately," Thylak ordered from his emergency command post. "Fall back to the edge of the system." The surviving Confederation vessels fled in disorder, many trailing atmosphere and debris. Of the 200 ships that had entered the system, fewer than 80 remained combat effective. The rest had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The human fleet, though victorious, had paid a price. 3 ships had been lost, including Captain G1's heroic sacrifice. Human casualties numbered in the thousands, but they had faced impossible odds and won. Admiral Minho surveyed the battlefield from his command ship. Burning alien vessels drifted through space while human rescue ships moved to collect survivors from both sides. "Send a message to all Confederation survivors," he ordered. "Offer them medical treatment and safe passage home." Lieutenant Hye Jin, who had survived the battle aboard her intelligence ship, looked at the destruction with mixed feelings. "Admiral, why are we helping them?" "They came here to conquer us." "Because that's what humans do," Minho replied. "We don't kick enemies when they're down. We help them up and try to make them friends." News of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The mighty Confederation, which had seemed unstoppable for 3,000 years, had suffered its first major defeat. A small human fleet had destroyed half of the legendary 7th Fleet using weapons that everyone had considered obsolete. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. The age of Cathari dominance was ending, and humanity had announced itself as a new power that could not be ignored. Grand Admiral Thylak, evacuated to a medical ship, stared back at the human system as his fleet limped away. He had underestimated these humans completely, thinking them primitive and weak. Instead, he had discovered a species that combined advanced technology with tactical brilliance and unbreakable determination. The defeat would end his career, but perhaps that was fitting. The galaxy was changing, and the old ways of thinking no longer applied. These humans had proven that superior numbers and advanced technology meant nothing without the will to use them effectively. As the battered Confederation fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to report their defeat, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Grand Admiral Thylak arrived at the human system with the largest fleet assembled in decades. 200 ships of the 7th Confederation Fleet filled space around the yellow star, their energy shields glowing like stars against the darkness. The massive fleet included 12 dreadnoughts, 40 battlecruisers, and over 100 smaller vessels. Thylak was the Confederation's most experienced military commander. In 50 years of service, he had never lost a battle. His reputation for overwhelming force and swift victory had made him a legend throughout Cathari space. "Admiral Hakron," Thylak said as he reviewed the situation, "you've described these humans as unusually resistant. That ends today. No species has ever withstood a demonstration of this magnitude." The human fleet had grown to 12 ships. The new arrivals included the massive dreadnought UES Invictus, commanded by Captain Sejun. The ship was humanity's newest and most powerful warship, built specifically for fighting large enemy fleets. Commander Yu Jin led a squadron of fast attack craft that had arrived from the outer colonies. Her ships were small and fast, designed for hit-and-run tactics against larger vessels. Each carried experimental weapons that the Confederation had never encountered. "Admiral, Captain Daeho reported to Minho from his bridge. Long-range sensors show the alien fleet is truly massive. Over 200 ships, including some we've never seen before. Expected, Minho replied calmly. They're trying to shock us into surrender. Has Ensign Kyung-Soo's reconnaissance ship returned? Yes, sir. The UES Phantom completed its intelligence mission. We now have detailed scans of every ship in their fleet. For the past month, Kyung-Soo had been shadowing Confederation vessels throughout their territory. His stealth ship had gathered crucial intelligence about enemy capabilities, tactics, and command structures. The information would prove vital in the coming battle. Grand Admiral Thylak broadcast his ultimatum across all frequencies. Humans of the third planet, you are surrounded by the 7th Fleet of the Galactic Confederation. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally and accept Confederation authority. Failure to comply will result in the complete pacification of your system. The message was meant to terrify human civilian populations and demonstrate the futility of resistance. Every species that heard such an ultimatum immediately surrendered. The alternative was total destruction. Admiral Minho's response came 12 hours early. Grand Admiral Thylak, this is Admiral Minho of the United Earth Space Force. Your fleet has 12 hours to withdraw from human space before being designated as hostile. This is your only warning. The casual dismissal of overwhelming force sent shockwaves through the Confederation fleet. Officers looked at each other in disbelief. A 12-ship fleet was threatening a force 20 times larger. They're insane, Admiral Hakaron muttered. Do they have any idea what we can do to them? Grand Admiral Thylak studied the human formation. The enemy ships had positioned themselves in a defensive sphere around their homeworld. It looked like a standard last stand formation, designed to make the attackers pay dearly for victory. Perhaps, he said slowly, but insane enemies can be the most dangerous. They might try some desperate tactic. Lieutenant Hyojin aboard the intelligence vessel UES Wraith intercepted Confederation battle communications. The aliens were planning to bypass the human fleet entirely and attack civilian targets on the planet's surface. It was a tactic they had used successfully against other resistant species. Admiral, she reported to Minho, they're not planning to fight our fleet directly. They want to force surrender by threatening civilians. Understood, Minho replied. Execute Defensive Plan 7. The human ships began to move, spreading out into a wider formation. To the Confederation observers, it looked like the humans were trying to cover more space to protect their planet. In reality, they were positioning themselves for maximum effectiveness against the coming attack. Captain Sejun checked his ship's weapon systems one final time. The UES Invictus carried humanity's most powerful weapons, magnetic railguns that could accelerate projectiles to enormous speeds. The aliens had never faced kinetic weapons of such power. All stations report ready, his tactical officer announced. Good. Remember, we only get one chance to surprise them. Make every shot count. Grand Admiral Thylak gave his final orders to the fleet. All ships advance in formation. Target their military vessels first, then move on to orbital installations. Keep civilian casualties to a minimum. We want to integrate these people, not exterminate them. The Confederation fleet began its approach, energy shields at maximum power and particle weapons charging. Thylak expected the human ships to either flee or make a desperate charge. Instead, they held position, waiting. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans aren't moving. They're just sitting there. Probably frozen with fear, Thylak replied. Some species panic when they see the true power of the Confederation. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the system, Admiral Minho activated humanity's first surprise. Hidden throughout the solar system were thousands of gravitational mines, devices that could create artificial gravity wells in space. The mines detonated simultaneously, creating massive gravitational distortions that pulled Confederation ships out of formation. The tightly grouped alien fleet found itself scattered and disoriented, with many ships unable to maintain their planned approach vectors. What's happening? Thylak demanded as his flagship shuddered under gravitational stress. Artificial gravity wells, sir. They're everywhere. Our navigation computers can't compensate. While the Confederation fleet struggled with the gravitational chaos, the human ships opened fire. Captain Daeho's railguns launched tungsten rods at incredible velocity. The kinetic projectiles punched straight through alien energy shields as if they weren't there. The Cathari had never encountered kinetic weapons of such power. Their shields were designed to stop energy beams and plasma bolts, not solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Ship after ship took devastating hits as human railguns found their targets. Commander Yu Jin led her attack squadron in a high-speed run against the alien capital ships. Her small craft carried nuclear torpedoes, weapons the Confederation had abandoned centuries ago as primitive but which proved terrifyingly effective against energy-shielded vessels. The first nuclear detonation inside a Cathari battlecruiser vaporized the ship instantly. The second and third explosions followed quickly, as human torpedoes penetrated shields that couldn't stop physical projectiles. Grand Admiral Thylak watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by weapons that shouldn't have worked. "How are they doing this?" he shouted. "Their weapons are primitive, sir," his tactical officer replied, voice shaking. "Primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Our shields can't stop solid objects at these velocities." The battle's turning point came when Captain Si-Jun engaged the Confederation flagship directly. The UES Invictus, its armor scarred but intact, faced the massive Eternal Dominion in single combat. Thylak concentrated the fire of a dozen ships on the human dreadnought, expecting to destroy it quickly. Instead, he watched his particle beam splash harmlessly against thick armor plating. The human ship had been designed to fight exactly this kind of battle. Si-Jun's main gun, a spinal-mounted mass driver running the length of his ship, fired once. The depleted uranium shell accelerated to enormous velocity, cored through the Eternal Dominion from bow to stern like a bullet through paper. The sight of their flagship dying broke the Confederation fleet's morale. These humans were supposed to be primitive, but they were destroying advanced Cathari ships with casual efficiency. "All ships retreat," Thylak ordered from his burning bridge. "Fall back to the edge of the system." But retreat was difficult with gravitational mines still disrupting space around them. Many Confederation ships limped away with heavy damage while others didn't make it out at all. The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, more than half the 7th Fleet had been destroyed or disabled. Human casualties were significant but far lower than expected. Admiral Minho surveyed the battlefield from his flagship. Burning alien ships drifted through space, while human rescue vessels moved to assist survivors. Even in victory, humanity showed mercy to defeated enemies. "Send a message to Grand Admiral Thylak," he ordered. "Tell him we're willing to provide medical assistance to his wounded." The offer of help to defeated enemies confused the surviving Cathari even more. In their experience, victorious fleets either destroyed the defeated or enslaved them. These humans seemed to follow different rules entirely. As news of the devastating defeat spread across Cathari space, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The age of unchallenged Confederation supremacy was over. The diplomatic meeting took place aboard Captain Ji-Won's cruiser, the UES Meridian. The ship's conference room had been specially prepared for the occasion, with human and alien seating arrangements carefully planned to avoid giving either side an advantage. Admiral Minho arrived first with his diplomatic team. Commander Unji, humanity's chief diplomat for alien affairs, carried detailed files about Cathari culture and negotiation tactics. The humans had studied their guests carefully. "Remember," Minho said quietly to his team, "they expect us to be impressed and grateful. They've done this hundreds of times before with other species. We're going to show them that humanity is different." Admiral Hakron entered the conference room with his own team, expecting the usual diplomatic dance. New species typically offered gifts, asked many questions about galactic civilization, and eagerly agreed to Confederation membership. He was confident this meeting would follow the same pattern. The first surprise came when the humans didn't stand up when he entered. In every previous first contact, the aliens had shown obvious respect for Cathari superiority. These humans remained seated, watching him with calm, evaluating eyes. "Welcome aboard the UES Meridian," Admiral Minho said in perfect galactic standard. "Please be seated." Hakron sat down, studying the human leader. Minho was older, with gray hair and steady eyes. He looked like a military officer, not someone who would be easily intimidated. "I am Admiral Hakron of the Cathari Navy," he began, using his formal introduction. "I represent the Galactic Confederation, the governing body of civilized space. We come offering membership in our great civilization." "I'm Admiral Minho of the United Earth Space Force," came the reply. "We appreciate your visit, but humanity governs itself. We're interested in establishing normal diplomatic relations between our peoples. The word normal bothered Hakron. Relations with the Confederation were never normal. They were always between superior and subordinate powers. I think you misunderstand, he said carefully. The Confederation doesn't have allies, it has members. Joining us brings protection, technology, and access to galactic trade networks. It's a generous offer. Commander Yunji leaned forward slightly. We've studied your methods, Admiral. You arrive with overwhelming force, demand submission, then integrate new species into your empire. That won't work with humanity. The casual way she said it shocked the Kethari delegation. Lieutenant Zephyra, who had accompanied Hakron to the meeting, looked visibly startled. No one had ever described Confederation expansion methods so bluntly. You've studied our methods? Hakron asked. Of course, Yunji replied. We know about your encounters with the Dravik Collective 15 years ago, the Silmareth Republic 10 years ago, the Vorthon Empire 5 years ago. The pattern is always the same. She activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. Red areas showed Confederation territory, with arrows indicating expansion patterns over the past 50 years. You expand steadily outward, absorbing every species you encounter, she continued. Some join willingly, others resist and are conquered. None remain independent. Admiral Hakron stared at the display. The information was completely accurate, showing details that should have been classified. How had these humans obtained intelligence about Confederation military operations? How do you know this? He demanded. Admiral Minho smiled slightly. We've been watching you for quite some time. Humanity doesn't make first contact blindly. This revelation changed everything. Hakron had assumed he was dealing with an isolated species that had never left their home system. Instead, these humans had somehow been observing Confederation activities across the galaxy. If you know our history, he said, then you know our strength. We control over half the galaxy. Our technology is advanced beyond anything you've seen. Resistance is pointless, is it? Minho asked. He activated his own holographic display, showing detailed technical analyses of Kethari ships. Your energy shields are vulnerable to kinetic projectiles, Yunji explained. Your particle weapons lose effectiveness against thick armor plating. Your ship designs prioritize speed and firepower but sacrifice defensive capability. The technical analysis was devastating in its accuracy. Every weakness the humans had identified was real. Worse, they clearly understood how to exploit these weaknesses. Zephyra whispered urgently to Admiral Hakron. Sir, this analysis is better than our own military assessments. They know more about our ships than we do. Hakron felt his confidence wavering. In 40 years of first contact situations, nothing like this had ever happened. New species were supposed to be amazed by Kethari technology, not casually pointing out its flaws. You seem to think you can resist the Confederation, he said, trying to regain control of the conversation. But you have 8 ships. We have thousands. Quality over quantity, Minho replied calmly. Besides, you don't have thousands of ships here. You have 30. And Admiral, we know you don't want to explain to your superiors why you had to destroy an entire system just to force one species to join your empire. The human leader was right. Confederation policy preferred peaceful integration when possible. Military conquest was expensive and created ongoing resistance problems. Hakron was expected to bring these humans into the Confederation willingly, not destroy them. What do you want? He asked finally. Simple, Yunji said. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over our territory. Establishment of normal diplomatic and trade relations. Mutual non-interference agreements. The Confederation doesn't make treaties with individual species, Hakron protested. We have members, not allies. Then you have a problem, Minho said. Because we won't be members and we won't be conquered. That leaves you with limited options. Admiral Hakron looked around the conference room. The humans sat calmly, showing no signs of fear or uncertainty. They spoke like equals negotiating with equals, not like a primitive species grateful for contact with advanced civilization. I need to consult with my government, he said finally. Of course, Minho agreed. Take all the time you need. Our position won't change. As the Kethari delegation prepared to leave, Hakron tried one last approach. You're making a mistake, he told Minho. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Without Confederation protection, you'll face threats you can't imagine. We'll take our chances, the human admiral replied. After the aliens left, Captain Ji-won turned to Admiral Minho. Think they'll accept our terms? No, Minho said. They can't afford to let word spread that a species refused to join them. They'll try to force us into submission. How long before they bring reinforcements? 2 weeks, maybe 3. They'll want to bring overwhelming force to make sure we don't embarrass them again. Commander Yoonji was already working on her tactical display. Our intelligence suggests they'll send a major fleet. Probably several hundred ships. Good, Minho said. The larger the force they send, the bigger the message we'll send when we defeat them. Meanwhile, aboard the Cathari flagship, Admiral Hakran was composing his report to Confederation Command. He tried to explain the human position without making himself look incompetent. The humans are unusually well-informed and resistant to standard integration protocols, he wrote. They appear to have been monitoring Confederation activities for an extended period. Recommend sending significant reinforcements to demonstrate overwhelming superiority. He paused before adding the final line. These humans are unlike any species we've encountered before. Extreme caution is advised. As he sent the message, Hakran looked out at the human ships maintaining their defensive formation. They showed no signs of backing down, even though they were vastly outnumbered. Either the humans were incredibly brave, or they knew something the Qatari didn't. Given their detailed intelligence about Confederation activities, Hakran was beginning to suspect it was the latter. The question was, what were the humans not telling them? Admiral Hakran stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the alien ships through the main view screen. In his 40 years of service, he had overseen first contact with 27 different species. The process was always the same. Show overwhelming force, demonstrate superior technology, then offer protection and guidance to the new species. The aliens had 8 large ships arranged in a defensive formation around their home planet. Even though they were outnumbered 4-1, they showed no signs of backing down. This was unusual but not unheard of. Some species needed a stronger demonstration before they understood their situation. Communications, Hakran said to his aide, broadcast the standard first contact message. All frequencies, all languages in our database. The message was simple and had worked for centuries. It explained that the Cathari came in peace, representing the Galactic Confederation. New species were invited to join the galactic community under Confederation guidance and protection. Captain Daeho stood on the bridge of the human battleship Sovereign, watching the alien fleet approach. His ship was the largest in the human defense force, but even it was dwarfed by the alien flagship. The humans had been expecting this moment for months. Captain, said Lieutenant Commander Su-jin from her tactical station, the alien ships are using energy shields and what appear to be particle beam weapons. Just as our intelligence predicted, Daeho nodded. Human long-range scouts had been watching the aliens for weeks, studying their technology and tactics. The aliens relied heavily on energy-based systems, shields, weapons, and propulsion. It was advanced technology, but it followed predictable patterns. Any response to their message? Daeho asked. Commander Boram, the communications officer, looked up from her console. Yes, sir. They're broadcasting a first contact message in multiple languages. They claim to represent something called the Galactic Confederation and want us to join their civilization. Standard alien superiority complex, Daeho said with a slight smile. Send our reply. Boram activated the communication system. The message she sent was brief and direct. This is Captain Daeho of the United Earthship Sovereign. You have entered human territorial space. State your intentions. On the Cathari flagship, Lieutenant Zephyra looked at her communications display with surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a response. It's in perfect galactic standard. Admiral Hakran frowned. New species never spoke galactic standard. They usually tried to communicate with mathematics or simple pictures. Learning the galactic language took years of study. What do they say? He asked. Zephyra read the message aloud. When she finished, the bridge was silent. No newly discovered species had ever claimed territorial rights or demanded to know Cathari intentions. They were supposed to be grateful for contact with advanced civilization. Territorial space, Hakran said slowly. They think they own this system? It appears so, sir. And, sir, the way they're speaking, they don't seem impressed by our presence. Admiral Hakran had seen confident species before, but their confidence usually disappeared when they realized how outgunned they were. These humans seemed different. They spoke like equals, not like a primitive species meeting their superiors for the first time. "Send another message," he ordered. "Tell them we represent the dominant power in this galaxy. Explain that joining the Confederation will bring them protection, technology, and trade opportunities. Make it clear that this is a generous offer." The human response came quickly. "We appreciate your offer, but humanity manages its own affairs. If you wish to establish diplomatic relations as equals, we can arrange a meeting." The word equals hit the Cathari bridge like a physical blow. No species had ever used that word when speaking to the Confederation. The Cathari were the leaders of galactic civilization. Other species were members, subjects, or protectorates, never equals. "Admiral," Zephyr said quietly, "they're not responding the way species usually do. They don't seem afraid or amazed by our technology." Hakron studied the alien ships on his screen. They looked primitive with their thick armor and crude design. But they moved with precision and confidence. Their formation was textbook perfect, covering all possible attack vectors. "Perhaps they don't understand our capabilities," he said. "Broadcast our technological specifications. Show them recordings of our weapons tests, our faster-than-light drives, our shield technology. Once they see what we can do, they'll be more reasonable." The human response to this demonstration was unexpected. Instead of amazement or fear, they sent detailed technical data about Cathari ships, specifications that should have been classified military secrets. Captain Deho read the alien technical data with interest. "They're trying to impress us with their technology," he said to his officers. "Send them our analysis of their ship designs, including the weak points we've identified." When the Cathari received the human analysis, Admiral Hakron felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine surprise. The humans had identified flaws in Cathari ship design that even the Confederation's own engineers had missed. "How do they know this?" he asked his tactical officer. "I don't know, sir. This level of analysis would require months of study and access to our technical databases." Hakron was beginning to realize that these humans were not like other species. They had clearly been preparing for this encounter, studying Cathari technology and tactics in advance. But how was that possible? "Admiral," Zephyr reported, "the humans are requesting a face-to-face diplomatic meeting. They're offering to host it aboard one of their ships." This was another break from normal procedure. New species usually begged for meetings with Confederation representatives. "They didn't offer to host them. Tell them we'll meet on neutral ground," Hakron replied. Both sides sent equal delegations. The meeting was arranged for the next day. As the Cathari prepared their diplomatic team, Hakron couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with this first contact situation. Meanwhile, on the human ships, Admiral Minho arrived from the outer system with additional vessels. He was the overall commander of human forces in this sector, and he had been monitoring the situation carefully. "How are they reacting?" he asked Captain Deho. "Confused," Deho replied. "They expected us to be awed by their superior technology and grateful for their attention. Instead, we're treating them like any other foreign power." "Good. The psychological advantage is important. If they think we're primitives, they'll underestimate us. If they realize we're equals, they'll respect us." Admiral Minho studied the tactical displays showing both fleets. The aliens had superior numbers and their technology was impressive. But technology alone didn't win battles. Tactics, training, and determination were equally important. "What's your assessment of their military capabilities?" he asked Sujin. "Their ships are well designed but predictable," she replied. "They rely heavily on energy shields and long-range particle weapons. Their formation tactics follow standard patterns we've seen in their other encounters." "Other encounters?" "Yes, sir. Our intelligence network has been monitoring their expansion for years. They follow the same pattern everywhere. Show up with overwhelming force, demand submission, then integrate the new species into their empire." Admiral Minho nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for a long time. They knew about the Galactic Confederation, their military tactics, and their expansion methods. The aliens thought they were making first contact with an isolated primitive species. They had no idea they were dealing with humans who had been watching and preparing. "Tomorrow's meeting will be interesting," Minho said. "Let's see how they react when they realize we know exactly who they are and what they want." The stars looked the same as always when Commander Vextal checked his navigation screen. His 12 ships moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of the galaxy. This was border patrol duty, the most boring job in the Cathari Navy. Nothing ever happened out here. Vextal had been doing this job for 15 years. He knew every rock and gas cloud in this sector. The Cathari controlled this part of space just like they controlled most of the galaxy. Their empire had been growing for 3,000 years. No one could match their technology or their military power. Lieutenant Zephyra sat at the communication station half asleep. She was young and eager, but Border Patrol was teaching her patience. "Commander," she said suddenly, sitting up straight. "I'm getting strange readings from Sector 7. Vextal walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures, sir, but they don't match anything in our database. The patterns are completely unknown." This was interesting. In 15 years, Vextal had never seen unknown energy signatures. Every species in the galaxy used technology based on the same principles. Energy shields, particle weapons, faster than light drives, all followed the same basic design. "How far away?" he asked. 3 light years, sir, near that yellow star system we marked as uninhabited." Vextal thought for a moment. Protocol said to investigate any unknown technology. It was probably nothing. Maybe some old wreckage or a natural phenomenon, but he had to check. "Set course for the yellow star system," he ordered. "All ships maintain formation." The journey took 6 hours. As they got closer, the energy readings became stronger. Zephyra kept checking her instruments, looking confused. "Sir, these readings are getting stranger. It's like the energy is organized, but not in any way I understand." When they reached the edge of the star system, Vextal saw something that made him freeze. Floating near the 3rd planet were massive metal structures. They were clearly artificial, but they looked nothing like any ship or station he had ever seen. The structures were huge. Some were longer than his entire fleet put together. They had a rough, blocky appearance with lots of strange projections and antennas. They didn't have the smooth, curved lines that all galactic ships used. Instead, they looked like someone had built them by welding metal plates together. "Are those ships?" Zephyra asked quietly. "I don't know," Vextal admitted. He had never seen anything like them. "Scan them. I want to know everything: size, materials, energy output." The scans revealed even more mysteries. The structures were made of metal alloys that weren't in their database. They had thick armor plating instead of energy shields. Strange weapons pointed in all directions, not the elegant particle beam arrays that civilized species used. "Sir," Zephyra said, her voice shaking slightly, "some of these structures are over 5 kilometers long. They're bigger than our largest battleships." Vextal felt a chill run down his spine. In the 3,000 years of Cathari expansion, they had never found anyone who could build ships that large. Most species they encountered were still using chemical rockets when first contact happened. "Any signs of life?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Lots of energy movement inside the structures. And sir, I think they know we're here." As if responding to her words, the massive structures began to move. They separated from each other slowly, taking up what looked like defensive positions around the planet. It was clear these were ships, not stations. Vextal made a quick decision. "All ships maintain position at the edge of the system. Begin passive scans only. No active sensors, no weapons targeting. We don't want to seem threatening." He turned to Zephyra. "Send a message to command. Tell them we've found artificial structures of unknown origin in the yellow star system. Request instructions." While they waited for a response, Vextal studied the alien ships. They moved with purpose and intelligence. Whoever built them understood tactics and ship design, even if their technology looked primitive. The response from command came 12 hours later. Admiral Hakron himself would arrive within 3 days with a full diplomatic fleet. Until then, Vextal was to observe and gather information. Over the next 2 days, Vextal watched the alien ships. They seemed to be studying his fleet just as carefully as he was studying them. Long-range scans showed more ships moving in the outer parts of the system. These aliens had a significant force. "Sir," Zephyr reported on the 2nd day, "I'm detecting communication signals between the alien ships. The signals are encrypted, but the transmission method is unknown. They're not using quantum channels like everyone else. Can you decode any of it?" "No, sir. The encryption is completely alien. But, sir, the amount of data they're transmitting suggests very complex coordination." Vextal nodded. These aliens, whoever they were, had sophisticated communication systems. They were working together, planning something. The question was what? On the third day, Admiral Hakron arrived with 30 ships, including the massive flagship Eternal Dominion. The admiral was old and experienced, a veteran of dozens of first contact situations. "Commander," Hakron said over the communication link, "what can you tell me about these aliens?" Bextel shared everything he had learned: the unknown materials, the massive size of their ships, their apparent coordination and intelligence. He also mentioned something that bothered him. The aliens showed no signs of fear or surprise at seeing Cathari ships. "Most species panic when they first see us," Vextal explained. "They try to hide or run away. These aliens are just watching us calmly. It's like they expected us to show up." Admiral Hakron was quiet for a moment. In his long career, he had seen hundreds of first contact situations. Primitive species always reacted the same way, with fear, wonder, or desperate attempts to communicate. They were always eager to learn about the greater galaxy and accept Cathari protection. "Well," the Admiral said finally, "we'll follow standard first contact protocol. We'll show them our strength, then offer them the benefits of joining our civilization. It always works." As the combined Cathari fleet moved deeper into the system, the alien ships began to move as well. They didn't flee or hide. Instead, they formed up in what looked like a battle formation, ready to face whatever was coming. Vextel watched the aliens prepare to meet them and felt something he had never experienced before in all his years of service: uncertainty. These aliens were different from anything the Cathari had ever encountered. The question was, how different were they really?